My security badge stopped working at 5:17 on a Tuesday morning. The reader flashed red 3 times. I tried again. Same light, same sharp chirp. Above the gate, the steel letters spelling Ellison Marine Works shone under the floodlamps, my late husband's name hanging over a yard I legally owned and could no longer enter. For 32 years, that gate had opened for me before sunrise. I had walked through it during storms, audits, layoffs, and the week after my husband died. That morning, it rejected me like a stranger. Beyond the fence, welding sparks flickered inside Dry Dock 2. A notice was taped beside the main entrance. Temporary management notice. Effective immediately, Grant Ellison would serve as acting operational authority because of an overnight safety emergency and concerns regarding my judgment and decision-making capacity. My stepson's name was at the bottom. So was mine, or something meant to look like mine. At 69, I had spent most of my career finding small lies inside large sets of numbers. Before taking over the yard, I had worked as a forensic accountant. I knew fraud rarely arrived shouting. It preferred clean paper, formal language. I photographed the notice. The pedestrian gate opened behind me. Mara, Rosa Alvarez stood there in a yellow rain jacket. She had worked at the yard longer than Grant had been old enough to drive. "Your badge too?" I asked. "Mine works." That answer told me enough. She stepped aside. "Come through." I entered through the employee gate instead of the owner's entrance. A few older workers nodded. The younger ones watched with the careful expressions people wear when they have heard something about you but have not decided whether to believe it. The air smelled of wet steel, diesel, and containment foam. "What happened?" "Fuel spill near berth 4, Rosa said. "Night shift says a transfer valve was left open. Grant called it a major containment failure." "How much?" 41 gallons. "That is not major." "I know. Did it reach the drains?" "No." "Then why is the whole yard under emergency authority?" Rosa glanced toward the administration building. "Ask Grant." He arrived minutes later in a dark coat, phone pressed to his ear, looking like a man who wanted everyone to notice how quickly he had answered a crisis. He ended the call when he saw me. "Mara," he said quietly, "you should not be here." He did not sound angry. That was the clever part. He sounded patient. "I own the place. You agreed to take a few days away. I agreed to review insurance renewals from home." That is not how the board understood it. "What board meeting?" Workers were close enough to hear us. Grant noticed. "Please, inside." He led me to the conference room and closed the door. My husband's old drafting table still stood against one wall. Grant placed a blue folder in front of me. The first page was titled Emergency Governance Resolution. It referred to 3 safety lapses, 2 accounting irregularities, and a preliminary medical assessment indicating possible cognitive decline. My signature appeared beneath it. I had never seen the document. Grant folded his hands. "You were exhausted when we discussed this." "We did not discuss it. Mara, this is exactly why people are worried." He said it softly, almost kindly. It was the sort of sentence designed to make resistance look like proof. I could have called him a liar. Instead, I turned the page. "Who has copies?" "The board, the insurer. Our lender received the temporary notice." So the lie had already traveled farther than the gate. I raised my phone. "I need this for my records." He hesitated, then nodded. "I photographed every page. This is only to protect the company," Grant said. "With me?" "With everything." The answer sounded practiced. I closed the folder. "All right, maybe I should go home." Relief crossed his face before he hid it. Outside, Rosa searched my expression. I gave her nothing. Privacy had always been my armor. I drove 3 blocks, parked beneath the interstate, and opened the photographs. The signature was wrong, but only slightly. Whoever copied it had used an older version of my handwriting, from before arthritis changed the angle of my M. Then I examined the medical reference. The resolution cited an assessment prepared by Dr. Stephen Vale on April 14th. I had met Dr. Vale once. My appointment had been on April 17th. The letter declaring me unfit had been created 3 days before the doctor named in it had ever seen me. The date discrepancy proved the incapacity claim had been prepared before anyone examined me. It did not prove who had built the rest of the story. I went home and spread 3 months of company records across the dining table. Grant had been careful. Every problem tied to my name looked ordinary by itself. A supplier had been paid twice for the same pump assembly. Our environmental liability certificate had expired for 9 days. A port inspection had been missed. A repair estimate for a fishing vessel had been approved so low it would have cost us nearly $80,000. 4 mistakes, 4 departments, all authorized through my credentials. That was the pattern he needed. Believable errors that could be shown to a board, lender, or insurer and described as decline. I called Naomi Price from a prepaid phone I kept for audit work. She answered after one ring. "Where are you?" "Home. Grant told everyone you left because you were overwhelmed. He also said you forgot agreeing to the leave." Naomi had started as a young compliance assistant. I taught her to read a vendor file for what was missing, not just what was present. 15 years later, she understood our systems better than anyone. "Can you pull the access logs?" I asked. A pause. "Are you asking me as compliance director, or asking me to risk my job without telling me what you know? I need facts before I explain anything. And that," she said, "is why Grant is winning." Naomi respected me, but I had spent years trusting her with responsibility while denying her real authority. I had promoted her twice but never given her a vote. She lowered her voice. "If you accuse him now, he will say the logs are corrupted, move everything to a new server, and tell the board you are paranoid. We need copies before he knows you are looking. Can you preserve them? What still exists?" Before hanging up, she warned me that Grant had been telling workers I repeated conversations and had covered for me for months. By noon, I understood the younger employees' cautious looks. Grant was not simply removing me. He was teaching everyone to believe removal was merciful. I spent the afternoon requesting a routine archive review. I emailed department heads using my usual dry language: insurance history, vendor payment support, inspection scheduling, estimate approvals. Nothing urgent or accusatory. Then I called Daniel Cho at Cascadia Commercial Bank. Daniel worked in fraud review. He had helped me untangle a contractor kickback case 6 years earlier and never confused caution with cowardice. "I need to know whether Ellison Marine is being positioned for a sale." "Mara, I cannot discuss confidential submissions. It is my company. That does not mean every document was submitted under your authority." The wording caught me. "So documents were submitted." "I did not say that." "You said enough." After a silence, he added, "The bank has received preliminary material connected to a possible change in control. I cannot identify the source or send copies without a formal process." Were concerns about my capacity included? I cannot answer that. He did not need to. If someone is using false records, bring me evidence that can be verified independently. Suspicion will not stop a transaction. By evening, Naomi sent a compressed folder through an encrypted link. My username appeared beside every disputed action. The duplicated payment had been approved at 9:42 p.m. The insurance certificate was marked reviewed after midnight. The inspection cancellation had been entered before dawn. The bad estimate carried my digital authorization and a voicemail attachment. I played the audio. My own voice said, "Approve it." I already looked at the numbers. It sounded natural until the second listen. The breath between the sentences was too long. The room tone changed. Someone had assembled the message from separate recordings. I printed everything and carried the pages to my husband's old drafting table. Invoice copies, badge reports, printer histories, email headers, phone metadata. I worked the way I had before computers convinced people fraud no longer left fingerprints. Naomi called. "The actions show your login," she said, "but the workstation identifiers are not yours." "Which terminals?" "I am still matching them." "Send the raw logs." "Mara, do not shut me out after I do this." I almost told her I was protecting her. That was the excuse I used when I kept decisions to myself. "You are right," I said. "Tomorrow, I tell you everything." Final access report arrived. 4 entries were highlighted. Every supposed mistake had been submitted from the workstation inside Grant's office. I checked the travel calendar beside them. On all 4 dates, Grant had told the board he was in San Diego meeting shipyard investors. The San Diego travel records gave me leverage, but not enough to use safely. Grant could claim someone else had entered his office. He could call the logs incomplete. He could say I was assembling coincidences because I could not accept being challenged. Naomi's warning stayed with me: move too soon, and he would erase the trail and use my anger as evidence. So I gave him what he wanted. 2 days later, I met independent corporate attorney Evelyn Hart. I showed her the false resolution, medical letter, and access records. "You still control the company," she said, "but the board can temporarily restrict your operational authority while the safety dispute is reviewed." Can they sell the yard? Not if the restriction is written correctly. We drafted a 30-day medical leave agreement. Grant could run schedules, approve routine repairs, and manage payroll, but he could not transfer ownership, pledge major assets, change the lease, or sign a sale agreement without additional approval. I left smaller paths untouched. vendor amendments, insurance supplements, financing packets, and port correspondence. Evelyn noticed. "You are leaving doors open." "Windows," I said. "Doors are too obvious." The next morning, I returned for the weekly operations meeting. Every chair was occupied except mine. Grant stood beside the whiteboard. My name had been erased and replaced with Acting Director, Grant Ellison. I placed the leave agreement on the table. For 30 days, I am stepping away from daily operations while an independent evaluation is completed. Rosa stared at me. Naomi kept her face blank. Grant scanned the restrictions. His shoulders loosened. He did not look victorious. He looked exhausted. "Thank you," he said. "I know this was not easy." That sincerity was almost worse than a smirk. I removed my office keys. The records room key, dry dock fob, and silver key to my husband's office. Grant reached for them, then stopped. "You can keep the office key." "No, you wanted the chair. Sit in it." By noon, he had. Naomi sent a photograph of Grant behind my husband's scarred desk, speaking to department heads who had reported to me for decades. Rosa was removed from capital planning meetings and reassigned to floor supervision. Senior estimator Curtis Lane was told his position was under review. Grant announced a lean management structure and said the company could no longer afford employees who resisted modernization. Then he called an all-hands meeting. I listened through an audio file Naomi recorded from her coat pocket. Grant said the repair business was unstable, the waterfront lease was underused, and the company needed a strategic partner. He never said sale. He used words like transition, redevelopment, and long-term security. 2 days later, Celeste Ward arrived. She wore a charcoal suit and shoes too clean for a marine yard. Her firm represented a development group interested in combining our lease with neighboring parcels. Grant introduced her as a consultant. Celeste called the dry dock's legacy infrastructure and the repair crews an operational component. She spoke about the yard as if the people inside it were equipment. I watched from across the street as she and Grant toured the property. He pointed toward the waterfront. She took photographs. That afternoon, I underwent a neurological evaluation in Seattle. The doctor asked me to remember 5 words, draw a clock, repeat numbers backward, and explain how I would respond to an emergency. I completed every task. While I arranged colored blocks, Grant was rearranging my company. The final report found no cognitive impairment. I locked it in my home safe. Grant expected me to waive it before the board. That would have ended the leave early and pushed him back into caution. I needed him comfortable. Naomi created a secured mirror of the compliance server before Grant's contractor could migrate the files. Every report, timestamp, revision, and attachment was copied to an encrypted drive outside the yard. Then Grant used the openings I had left. An altered safety summary went to the insurer. A revised operating forecast went to the bank. A preliminary redevelopment notice went to the Port Authority. I could have blocked each submission. I did not. Private drafts could be denied. Documents sent outside created witnesses, dates, and obligations. My silence had a cost. Rosa stopped returning my calls. Curtis was escorted out carrying years of photographs in a cardboard box. At the next morning meeting, my chair was removed entirely. Naomi said workers were beginning to believe I had abandoned them. I wanted to walk through the gate, put the medical report on Grant's desk, and end the performance. Instead, I watched the paper trail lengthen. At 11:38 on the 14th night of my leave, Daniel Cho sent one bank attachment with no explanation. It was a financing schedule for the proposed waterfront transaction. The yard's equipment was listed as security. So was the lease. Then I reached the final line. Grant had also listed the employee retirement reserve as collateral. The number looked harmless until I opened the supporting schedule. Employee retirement reserve, $3.8 million. I checked the plan documents. The reserve was not excess cash. It belonged to 54 employees. Mechanics who had spent decades breathing metal dust. Welders with damaged knees. Staff who had stayed when larger yards paid more. If Grant's financing closed and the redevelopment failed, the bank could reach money those people believed was protected. I called Daniel. Can he legally pledge it? Not without proper authorization and plan review. Did the bank receive those approvals? I cannot answer that. The attachment carried company credentials and Grant's explanations. Until I produced a cleaner record, the transaction would continue. I printed the retirement ledger from an old backup. The names ran down 12 pages. Beside many, someone had handwritten a spouse, child, or beneficiary. Rosa Alvarez, Curtis Lane, Naomi Price, people I knew reduced to numbers in Grant's financing package. Before dawn, I drove to the public road beside the yard. Workers in protective suits were still cleaning residue from the spill. Absorbent pads floated in gray water while the people behind the false emergency sat inside warm offices. Rosa spotted my car. "I need to show you something," I said. She stayed outside the door. "Now you need me?" I handed her the schedule. She read the final line. "Is this our retirement fund?" "Yes." "Can he do that?" "He is trying. And you let him keep running the place." I let him create evidence. Rosa stepped closer. "You and Grant are more alike than either of you wants to admit. That is not fair. He thinks the yard belongs to him because his father built it. You think it belongs to you because you kept it alive. The rest of us carry whatever risk the Ellison family creates." I wanted to remind her who had signed payroll. Instead, I looked at the ledger. Rosa tapped one name. "That is my husband. If I die first, this keeps him in the house. Curtis has a daughter with cerebral palsy. Naomi supports her mother. This is not leverage in your fight." "I know." "No, you know now." She walked back toward the cleanup crew. That afternoon, our insurer issued a suspension warning. The altered summary described repeated environmental violations. Unless the company submitted a corrective plan within 10 business days, hazardous operations coverage could be restricted. Without that coverage, the dry docks could not operate. Grant presented the warning as proof that a sale was necessary. Then Naomi sent one message. I had to sign the emergency compliance resolution. "I'm sorry." The resolution authorized Grant to negotiate corrective action with the insurer. Naomi's signature was beneath his. I called twice. She did not answer. Her name beside Grant's felt more personal than the forged signature on mine. I drove to the far end of the yard, where my husband's unfinished restoration boat sat beneath a corrugated roof. Cancer had left the hull stripped to bare ribs. I climbed inside and sat where the cabin should have been. For years, I had said I delayed succession planning because Grant was reckless and the board was weak. Part of that was true. The rest was harder. The yard was the last place where my husband's decisions still shaped the world. Every beam, lease map, and scarred workbench carried his fingerprints. Handing over authority felt like losing him again. So I had kept control. I had trusted Naomi with emergencies but not a vote. I had expected Rosa's loyalty without giving workers ownership. I had treated preservation as proof of love. Grant was exploiting that failure, but he had not invented it. He asked me to meet in the cafeteria after closing. He sat across from me with a folder and 2 untouched coffees. Inside was a retirement package, a cash payment, lifetime health coverage, and use of my office until the sale closed. In exchange for what? You stopped challenging the transition. You pledged employee retirement money. It is temporary collateral. The redevelopment proceeds replace it. And if the deal stalls? It will not. That is not an answer. He pushed the folder closer. I spent my life as a guest in my father's company. After he died, everyone still looked to you. His name was on the building, but you decided who belonged beneath it. There was real pain in his voice. I believed that part. You deserved a path, I said. You did not deserve permission to fabricate one. For a second, I saw the boy who had waited outside his father's office while we argued over budgets. Then he closed the folder and became the man who had wagered 54 retirements. "I am offering you dignity." "No, you are offering me silence." I left the package on the table. That night, I stopped planning how to reclaim my chair. Saving the yard could not mean restoring a system dependent on one family's judgment. I began researching employee trusts, protected benefit structures, and ownership rights buried in old corporate charters. Near midnight, Daniel sent another attachment from the draft sale agreement. Most of it was ordinary acquisition language. One line was not. A $600,000 payment would be released at closing to Harbor Strategy Group. Harbor Strategy Group was registered at Grant's home. The address confirmed Grant had not merely convinced himself the sale was necessary. He had arranged to be paid for making it happen. I sent the corporate registration to Daniel and asked whether it was enough. His reply came 20 minutes later. "It proves Grant controls the company. It does not prove he knowingly submitted false information. The bank needs a certification, an email, or a recorded instruction tying him to the altered records." At 8 the next morning, Naomi called from a blocked number. "Meet me at the old net warehouse." "Come alone." Naomi stood between dusty spools with a laptop bag at her feet. "You signed with him," I said. "I signed so the resolution would enter the official compliance system. That gave him authority. It also froze every attachment he submitted." She opened her laptop. 2 fuel spill reports appeared side by side. The original, completed at 2:11 a.m., described 41 gallons contained before reaching a drain. The version sent to the insurer listed 410 gallons, runoff exposure, and delayed management response. The submitted copy cannot be replaced without creating a visible revision, Naomi said. If I refused to sign, Grant could have used private counsel and uploaded whatever version he wanted later. She connected an encrypted drive. This is the server mirror. Every original file, revision history, login, and attachment from before the migration. I should have thanked her first. Instead, I asked, "Why did you ignore my calls?" Her expression hardened. "Because you still thought I was an employee you could summon, not a partner risking her career." "I was wrong," I said. "About the calls, the board vote, and making you responsible for decisions I would not let you help control." "What are you planning?" "An employee trust, if we can find a legal right to stop the sale." "And after you win? The workers hold the majority." "Put that in writing." That afternoon, Evelyn Hart drafted a binding commitment. If we stopped the sale, I would transfer controlling ownership into an employee benefit trust under an independent board. I signed before asking Naomi to do anything else. Only then did she hand me the drive. Rosa found the opening we needed. She had kept a copy of the original company charter from a benefit dispute years earlier. Buried in a 1989 amendment was a matching provision. Before any transfer of the waterfront operation to an outside buyer, a qualified employee ownership trust could match the economic terms if 70% of eligible workers approved. My husband had added it after a competitor tried to buy the yard during a recession. I remembered arguing that it would frighten investors. He had answered, "Then it will frighten the right people." We needed a formal trust, an independent valuation, financing, and votes from workers who had reason to distrust both Grant and me. I hired a valuation firm with my own money. Evelyn began forming the trust. Daniel referred us to a lender willing to review an employee bid, but only after the retirement reserve was removed from the proposed collateral. Then I stopped holding meetings and started listening one person at a time. I met welders beside tool lockers, mechanics in parked trucks, and office staff at a diner away from management. Some signed confidential support cards. Others pushed them back. "You disappeared when Grant started cutting people." One machinist said, "I did. You expect us to believe this is not another Ellison fight?" "No. I expect you to judge the documents and protect yourselves." Curtis Lane signed after reading the commitment twice. A younger welder refused because Grant had promised him a supervisory job. 2 payroll clerks said they could not risk being fired before rent was due. Rosa kept the count in pencil inside her locker. We needed 38 votes. After 6 days, we had 31. Meanwhile, Naomi and I built the evidence chain. The server mirror showed spill figures changed from Grant's terminal. Vendor emails confirmed the insurance certificate had arrived before it was marked expired. Printer logs tied the false board minutes to his office. The medical packet carried metadata from a consultant working for Celeste Ward's firm. Daniel traced the $600,000 payment to Harbor Strategy Group, but repeated the same warning. Grant still has to certify the transaction package. Until then, he can claim advisors prepared everything and he relied on them. So we let him certify it. If he does, the plan required patience and something harder, letting Grant believe he was ahead. Evelyn obtained sworn statements from the pump supplier, port scheduler, and vessel owner whose estimate had been altered. Each corrected one manufactured mistake without alerting Grant that the records were being assembled together. Naomi placed the server drive in a bank safe deposit box. Rosa collected votes in silence. I approved the valuation without putting my name on yard correspondence. For once, the yard's future depended less on my authority than on whether the people I had kept outside power would choose to trust me now. I entered the administration lobby after midnight to retrieve an archived charter book. My portrait still hung beside my husband's. I took mine down. In its place, I hung an empty frame with a note inside the backing, "Future Employee Board." The next morning, Celeste Ward sent the Port Authority an amended schedule. The lease transfer hearing had been moved forward by 10 days. We had 31 votes, no completed financing, and less than 2 weeks to build both. The shortened schedule forced everyone to choose before they felt ready. Grant moved first. Naomi was suspended for unauthorized handling of confidential systems. Her access card was disabled, her office sealed, and her name removed from the roster before lunch. Then Grant called an all-hands meeting. He announced that unless the port approved the lease transfer at the accelerated hearing, the developer would withdraw. If that happened, the yard would face layoffs, reduced health coverage, and frozen retirement contributions. He let each worker calculate the cost of opposing him. By evening, 5 support cards had been withdrawn. We dropped from 31 votes to 26. Daniel called that night. The bank sees inconsistencies. That does not prove Grant knowingly submitted false information. What would prove intent? His final certification. Once he affirms the disclosures are complete and accurate, the statements become his. If Grant corrected the records or postponed the hearing, our evidence might prove misconduct without stopping the sale. We needed him confident enough to finish. We also needed 12 votes and financing we did not have. The employee lender required someone to guarantee the shortfall. Evelyn placed the amount in front of me. If you pledge your savings and home equity, the trust can submit a conditional bid. And if the workers cannot refinance, you could lose both. My house was the only asset untouched by Ellison Marine. After my husband died, it became the one place that required nothing from me. I signed the guarantee. My hand stayed steady. That did not make the risk smaller. I refused to let Rosa collect another vote until every worker understood what I had done and what I had failed to do. We gathered after shift change in the fabrication bay, just folding chairs between tool cabinets. I am guaranteeing the employee bid with my savings and my home, I told them. The lender can change its terms. The port can reject us. A worker near the back asked, "Why should we risk our jobs because you suddenly decided to share?" Because I should have shared power years ago. The bay went quiet. I admitted I had delayed succession planning because I was afraid the yard would disappear without me. I had denied Naomi a vote, expected Rosa's loyalty, and treated the company like grief I was entitled to control. Grant exploited those failures, I said, but he did not create them. I showed them the retirement schedule, altered reports, and my signed commitment transferring majority control to the trust if we won. I am not asking you to save my company. I am asking whether you want the chance to own yours. No one applauded. They were listening. Rosa placed the support cards beside the time clock. Workers returned one by one. Curtis came first. Although Grant had fired him, 2 payroll clerks followed. The young welder promised a promotion signed last. By midnight, we had 36. Rosa found the final 2 on the night shift, brothers who had worked at the yard for 17 years. The employee trust reached 38 votes at 1:12 a.m. Evelyn submitted the conditional matching offer before sunrise. The port acknowledged it. The lender opened final review. Naomi finished indexing the server mirror. We prepared 3 identical evidence packages. They went to the port investigator, insurer, and Daniel's bank team. Each contained the original spill report, altered submission, printer logs, vendor statements, medical metadata, retirement collateral schedule, and harbor strategy payment. The letters instructed each institution to review the package only after Grant completed the final certification. Until then, the files remained sealed. Grant came to my house the night before the hearing. "You filed a matching offer." "Yes. You are going to destroy the sale. I am giving the employees the right your father put in the charter. He never imagined you would use it against his son. I am not using it against you." He laughed once. "You make every decision and call the consequences neutral." Inside, he stopped beside his father's photograph. "You loved this company more than you loved either of us," he said. "When Dad was sick, you discussed payroll in the hospital. After he died, you kept his office exactly the same and expected me to ask permission to sit in his chair. It hurt because part of it was true. I used the yard to avoid losing him," I said. "And I used control to avoid admitting I was afraid. You could have made room for me. I should have." For 1 second, the argument left him. Then I placed the final certification on the table. "You still have a choice. Correct the records, remove the retirement reserve, disclose harbor strategy, postpone the hearing. If I do that, the financing collapses. Then let it collapse before you swear the lies are true. What happens to me if I stop? You face what you have already done. But you do not add a false certification. And you get the yard. The employees get the yard." That closed the opening. "You finally found a way to take my father's company from me and call it fairness." He left without saying goodbye. Across town, lights remained on in the executive office until nearly 3. Naomi watched the remote server log. Grant opened the certification packet twice. He changed nothing. The next afternoon, the port hearing room faced the harbor through tall windows. Cranes moved behind Grant as he sat before the review panel. Celeste sat beside him. Bank counsel occupied the next table. Workers filled the hallway outside. The chairperson placed Grant under oath. "Do you certify that the safety, medical, ownership, and financial information submitted in support of this transfer is complete and accurate?" Grant looked toward me. Then he leaned into the microphone. "Yes," he said, "I certify that it is complete and accurate." Grant's certification changed the room. Until that sentence, every false report could still be blamed on an advisor, clerk, or misunderstanding. Once he swore the package was complete and accurate, the record belonged to him. The port chair turned toward our table. "Ms. Ellison, you requested time to respond." I stood, but I did not begin with Grant. I began with Naomi. She placed 2 fuel reports on the display. The original showed 41 gallons contained before reaching a drain. The submitted version showed 410 gallons, runoff exposure, and delayed response. "These share the same report number," Naomi said. The larger figure was entered after completion from the acting director's terminal. She continued through the expired insurance certificate, missed inspection, and altered repair estimate. The yard had kept every version. Daniel spoke next. "Our bank received financing materials representing these records as accurate and authorized," he said. "Today's certification permits a formal internal review." Rosa stepped forward with the retirement ledger. She explained that the reserve belonged to 54 employees and had been pledged without required plan approval. She placed the unauthorized schedule beside Grant's certification. Then it was my turn. I submitted the neurological evaluation finding no cognitive impairment. Evelyn displayed the medical capacity letter used to remove me. "The letter is dated April 14th, I said. "The doctor named in it first examined me on April 17th. Metadata showed it had been created by a consultant linked to Celeste Ward's firm." Celeste's expression changed. Daniel displayed the draft closing schedule. $600,000 was assigned to Harbor Strategy Group. Evelyn presented the state registration. The company's address was Grant's home. Celeste turned toward him. "You told us that was an independent advisor." She stood. "The developer withdraws support for this transfer pending investigation." That ended the sale before the port ruled. Bank counsel froze the financing. The insurer withdrew its suspension deadline and opened a review of the altered reports. The port delayed the lease transfer and referred Grant's certification to compliance. Grant sat motionless. The chair asked whether any alternative transaction remained. Evelyn filed the employee trust's matching notice. The charter provision appeared on the screen, followed by 38 verified approvals, the independent valuation, and our conditional financing letter. The port granted provisional recognition of the matching right, subject to financial review and removal of the retirement reserve from all collateral. We had not won the yard in one afternoon, but Grant had lost the right to sell it. Grant caught my arm near the stairwell. "Please," he said, "tell them this was a family misunderstanding. No, I am still his son. And I am still your family. That is why I will not humiliate you for entertainment. But I will not lie for you." He looked toward the harbor. "What happens now? You answer the board, bank, insurer, and port. You could protect me. Accountability is the only help I can still offer." The board removed Grant from management that evening. The bank pursued recovery of diverted costs. The employee plan demanded restitution, and regulators restricted his ability to act as a corporate officer. There were depositions, legal bills, asset disclosures, and a civil settlement requiring Grant to surrender the Harbor Strategy payment and repay company losses over time. He and I did not reconcile. The employee trust survived financial review, but not without sacrifice. Wages remained frozen for 1 quarter. My personal guarantee stayed in place until refinancing closed. The new board included workers, an independent financial officer, and a community representative. I kept my promise. I transferred majority control. Naomi became chief compliance officer with a board vote. Rosa was elected the first employee chair. My name remained on a minority interest certificate, but not above anyone else's. Months later, I returned before sunrise. Rain tapped against the chain link fence as it had the morning my badge failed. A new sign stood beneath Ellison Marine Works. Employee owned. Below it were the elected board members' names. I held my old badge to the reader. The light turned green. Inside, welding sparks rose from dry dock 2. Rosa waited near the gate in the same yellow rain jacket. "You are early," she said. Old habit. I removed my access badge from my coat and placed it in her hand. "You will need this more than I do." She looked at the badge, then at me. "You can keep access without owning the place." I know. That was the difference. For years, I believed the yard remembered my husband because I controlled every door. I believed it remembered me because my signature appeared on every important page. The harbor had kept a better record. It remembered the welders who repaired hulls in winter, the mechanics who stayed through layoffs, the people who preserved every report, and the workers whose retirement money had nearly been traded for one man's rescue. I walked through the gate beside Rosa without presenting a badge. I no longer needed ownership to prove I belonged there.